Hello, friends. How are you all? I hope you are doing great and taking care of yourself. It has been quite a while I haven't posted any of the videos on my YouTube channel due to some work commitment. But today I really thought that it has been a time and I should put a video on my YouTube channel where I will be covering another chapter of our journey of learning Docker fundamentals for beginners for my viewers or the people who have been watching my channel. And today we are going to talk about a Docker networking chapter in the Docker fundamentals for beginners. Have you ever imagined that we have built the containers, whether these containers can talk to each other or whether they have a connectivity to the internet? To answer that question, Docker networking is the chapter which will explain you different types of Docker network and how containers can talk to each other or how containers can connect to the internet. So without much further delay, let's get into it. So friends, without much further delay, let's get into the nut and bolts of the different Docker network types. The first one is the bridge network. As you can see on the screen, the containers are connected to a default bridge called as Docker 0, and through that they are accessing the network. Think of a community where you have different buildings, okay, and the people from those buildings now need to access the world outside. So there is a common community gate through which they can step outside and access the world outside it. Coming to a user defined bridge network, think of you have a building A which has a door, and in that building A you have different apartment 1, 2, 3, 4, and those apartment now has a key to access that door. So with that key they can access that door and get outside to access the world. So the same thing where in if we talk about user defined bridge network, we have created our net bridge network, and the containers can have the key to access that user defined bridge network to access the internet. So that's what is a user defined network. Now coming to the a host network, where think you have a private house or a private town home where you have your own street address, the house number, and a couple of other things associated to it. So in this case, in the townhome you have different rooms: room 1, room 2, room 3, room 4, and those containers are, or those rooms are now accessing the things inside that townhome or the private house, right? Which can be a private balcony, kitchen, living room where you have TV and etc. So that's how the host network is, where the containers are accessing the things of which is the host network, right? So they have the host network IP address. They will not have their own virtual IP address. One difference between the host network and the bridge network is the containers have their own IP addresses, but in this case the containers will use the host IP address. Same thing, right? As I mentioned, in the townhome you have room 1, 2, 3, 4. They share the same address, the house number, the street address, everything is shared, right? So that's what is the host network. Now coming to a non network is a thing called as a closed box or a closed container, where the container does not has any window or a door to access the outside network, right? So it's room which is locked. Now the person or the people staying in that room can't access the living room, can't access the kitchen, can't access the things in the living room like TV, etc. Right? Coming to the overlay network, this is kind of a thing. Consider this: in a building you have apartment 1, apartment 2, apartment 3. On the other side you have apartment 4, 5, 6. Now there is a common pathway for these people to talk to each other and go to their apartment, chit chat and etc. Similarly, so that's what is the overlay network. So in this, the containers are connected through a common hallway or a common logical layer called as a over network layer. So that's what are the different types of the Docker network types. There are other types also: Mac where VLAN network, but for now, these are the important frequently used Docker network types. So without much further delay, I am much excited to show you the demo of all these network types which we have discussed. So let's get into the action. So friends, as you can see on my screen, there are no containers running on in my Docker desktop GUI, right? So what we will do is we will first type here something called as a network ls, and you see we have a default network called as bridge host none. Do not think about this, I've created this for some other demo purpose, right? And we will use something called as a docker ps to see if any of the containers are there, which you can see on the screen on the Docker desktop itself. Now I'm going to run a container, run itd, which is interactive terminal detached dash dash name, uh, put container 1, and I'm going to use busy box image. So the moment I type this, the container has contain. You can see the container 1 is running. So we will create another container called as container 2. So now there are two containers running. What we will do is, if you click on view details, you can use docker inspect also, but if you use Docker desktop, you can directly go here and you can see here something called as a network mode. And if you see, the network mode here is bridge. Also, if you little bit scroll down, you will see something called as network settings, where you will see the IP address is this. There are other so you see here the IP address. So in networks, you go to bridge and you'll see the IP address of the container, which is 172.17.0.2. Now if we go to exe, okay, and if we type here ping yahoo.com, you can see I'm getting a response. So that means this container is now having access to the internet through a default bridge called as docker 0. Right? Now similarly, if I go to the container 2 view details, okay, I go to inspect. Again we will go through the same thing. We will see the network mode is bridge. We will also go to the network settings, scroll down. You see the IP address of this container is 172.17.0.3. Right? The container 1 was having 0. 0.2. Now this is having 0.3. So that means it has its own virtual IP address. Now if I go here and type here ping google.com, I see the response. That means this container is also having the access to the internet through a driver bridge. Now if I type here ping container 1, let's see what happens. no response, right? So it's not able to connect to container 1. Similarly, if I go to the container 1, okay, and I type container 2, okay, let's see what we get. No response, because these containers are having different IP address and they are not connected to the same bridge. Now what we are going to do is we are going to create a custom bridge, and we are going to basically run our containers using that bridge, right, and see what happens. So let's stop these containers. We can also delete these containers because we have seen a demo of this. Now let's quickly clear our screen here, right? CLS, I'm going to use something called as docker docker network create, and the name of that network would be my net, right? So what I've done is I've created my own network. Now if I do docker network ls, you see my net is also using the bridge net driver, right? So now let's create docker run dash itd dash name container 3 dash network equals to my net, and we use busy box. And you see, now my container has been started. It is using the network my net. I will show you that in a minute, right? So these both are containers are running. If I go to view details, and if I go to inspect, right, you will see something called as network mode my net. They are using the network which I have created. Similarly, let's go to the container 4 and inspect here, and you see network mode is my net. One more thing I want to show you, and what I'm going to do here is docker inspect, sorry, docker inspect my net. The moment I type this, you see here something called as a containers, and in that you have container 3, container 4. So these are basically using the network which is named as mynet. The driver is bridge. Now if I go to this container 4, and if I type ping container 3, what happens? See, we it is able to access container 3 because both container 4 and container 3 are on the same network bridge which we created. So that's how you can talk. Each of the containers can talk to each other with a user defined network bridge. I hope you got an understanding of how to create your own bridge network. What is difference between a default bridge network which is docker 0, which docker does not grants permission or allows you to access that network. In this in my network, what we have created my net or a user defined bridge network, it is more secure, it is more isolated, I would kind of say, because it is the containers are running within your defined network. I hope you got an understanding now, better understanding of this. Now without much further delay, let's get into the host network in a minute. So friends, what I have done is I've deleted all my containers, but before getting into the host network, let's quickly wind up with a none network. So for that, what you will do is you will create a container dash itd dash name container. Let's put container 1 dash network equals to none, and I will use Alpine image. Okay, so I've downloaded this, it's downloading it. What happened? Docker is, oh sorry, spelling is incorrect. Let's just use quickly busy box. Sorry. Busy box. Okay, so now we have created a container. Okay, and if you see docker network ls and docker ps. Okay, so we have created this container. This is the none one, right, which we are using none. Okay, now if I click on this, right, go to view details, right, and go to inspect. Now let's see what is our network mode. Okay, we see our network mode is none. Now can I access the internet? Let's see, right? Let's type ping google.com, and we do not get any response because none means no access to the network. So that's how you can basically control your container not to have access to the internet. I hope you got an understanding of how to use the Docker network type called as none. Now let's quickly get into our interesting host network. So friends, how can you create a host network? You can't create a host network, but you can put your container using a host network, right? So for that, what we will do is to use docker run itd dash dash name. Okay, we'll put container one dash dash network equals to host and jnex. Okay, so our container is created. I'm going to create one more container run itd dash dash name is container, say let me put container 5 dash p. Okay, 8080.0 and nginx. Okay, so what happened? Port, okay, what is telling container 5 it, no, wait one sec, spelling somewhere. Okay, I got it. The docker spelling is wrong. Sorry for typo error. So what I've done is I've created one container which is using a network called has host, and another container, if I don't specify any host or any network type, it will use default bridge network. And now I have exposed, or I've done the port mapping of my container to listen to 80 port. So the moment if I go here, you will see here something, inspect. Okay, and if I go down here, you will see the network mode is bridge and the port binding is 80 tcp. The host ip, the host port is 8080. Now if I go in this, right, if I go in my host network, okay, you will see network mode is host, but there is nothing called as a port bindings. Also if I go down to the network settings, it will not have an any ip address. But if I go to the regular nginx image which I've created, which is accessible on 8080, if I go down to the network settings, mount cmd network settings, you can see here, what do you see here? I have a host ip address, uh, which is 0.000, host port is 8080, and if I scroll down, the in the networks, it has the IP address 172.17.0.2. So that means this container has its own virtual IP address. Now, if I click on this, right, the 8080 port, you will see that I am able to access welcome to nginx, right, because we have done the port mapping of this container on port 80, right. But if we go to the another container, there is no port mapping, there is no port mapping, right, because it is using our machine's IP address. Now if I go to inside this, can I access the local host? Let's see that, right? Curl local host. Yeah, I'm able to access because it is using the same port, the same IP address, whatever is it is using that, like the same street name, the house name. In your private home you have different rooms, floors or kind of thing, but they belong to that isolated private house, so they will share the same street address, the same house number, same resources, etc. The same thing is here. The container is using the host's IP address, the resources, the numbers, whatever you want, call it, and you can see it is now accessible, right. That's what is the host network. When you want your containers to use your own network, and this is the case when you are running the high sensitive bad jobs where it has a sensitive data, you don't want that data to be exposed, you create your own virtual private network, right, and then you run the containers inside it, or the batch jobs which you have, right. So those are that is a scenario where you can use it, the host network. Now I can't explain you or show you a demonstration of the overlaid network, but to create that you need to use network, docker network create -d overlay and the name of the overlay network. The moment you do this, it will prompt you for a docker swarm in it to be initiated, or a docker swarm to be joined. What is this docker swarm? Docker swarm is the way where you can connect different containers together, right. It's a kind of a cluster where you are running multiple containers and virtual machines inside it, right, and through that you can basically access the different containers inside. So it's kind of a cluster which has different containers, and those containers now can talk to each other through an overlay network. I hope you got an understanding of what are different types of docker network types and how we can use in different scenarios. If you found this video was really helpful and it had added some knowledge to your docker refreshment journey, then do not forget it to subscribe my YouTube channel, and do not forget to hit the bell icon to get notified when I upload the next and last video of our journey for Docker fundamentals for beginners, which is Docker Compose. Until then, take care. Bye bye.